Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for district residents. They make recycling leftover paint easy with convenient locations like your local paint store. Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter and reducing waste. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up what's left. And 3, recycle the rest. To learn more or find a paint drop site near you, visit paintcare.org/3simplerules. That's paintcare.org/3simplerules.
Hey there, today's episode is sponsored by Nace Law Group. You may remember them as our longtime sponsor, Paulson and Nace. Now they're the Nace Law Group. Same great team, just with a new name. Today on CityCast DC, it's our Friday News Roundup. We're talking about the big military parade slated for Donald Trump's birthday. We're talking about Congress targeting a couple of DC laws where they might actually have some local allies. And there's an epic scavenger hunt. Plus, in our members-only fourth topic, we will talk through the way the new war on globalism is affecting DC's local culture. I'm here with Axios' Junaid Deal and my CityCast colleague, Julia Caron. Today is Friday, April 11th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Junaid.
Hello, hello.
So, this is one of those weeks where, a thing that was sort of a big political news story actually began with friend of CityCast Tom Sherwood reporting, based on his sources in the Wilson building, that the big, grand military parade that President Trump wanted during his first term is actually likely to happen this summer as it happens on Trump's birthday. This involves like a bunch of hardware that earlier Mayor Bowser had said is going to chew up the streets and cost a great deal of money in repairs. Where does that stand? You cover the Wilson building.
It's very early stages, but Trump could get his military parade that he's wanted for so long. There are lots of comparisons to draw. He went to France's Bastille Day celebrations in 2017 and came away thinking, wow, I want to have tanks and soldiers rolling down, I guess, Pennsylvania Avenue or in DC. And he's wanted this since 2018, didn't get it because the costs were so expensive. And like you mentioned,
he said that a bunch of local politicians who didn't like him for other reasons were inflating and exaggerating those costs. Is that true?
That's what he said. But, it apparently was going to cost $92 million. And, we complain about potholes already in DC, and just all these heavy military equipment rolling on streets can't make it better.
But wait, literally, what does a tank rolling down Pennsylvania Avenue do to Pennsylvania Avenue?
Yeah, think about trucks. I've covered neighborhood, local neighborhood meetings where people talk about, let's not get all this truck traffic because it is messing up our roads. You're adding more pressure on the asphalt. It can chew up the roads faster, and you got to get rid of bike lanes and barriers.
No, I get that day after day after day, but once?
I don't know. I'm not an expert at asphalt and, but that's what the mayor has said. But you got to get rid of the bike lanes and the barriers and other furniture on the street, if you will. I'm sure to do some of these things, and then you have to repair it, I guess, or redo it, so it costs money.
So why didn't we get this back in 2018, and why is it now a more serious thing that's maybe going to happen?
Yeah, like I said, it was originally going to cost 10 million or something, and then it apparently went up to $92 million in cost estimates. They canceled it. At the time, it was kind of maybe amusing. Trump said something like, well, it costs too much, too bad, but we're going to buy some fighter jets instead for that money, or something like that. He kind of moved on, pivoted away from it. But it's always stuck in his mind, obviously, to have a big military parade. And
so this is supposed to happen. This is supposed to happen on Saturday, June 14th, which is also, this is already a planned celebration for the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army. It's also Trump's 79th birthday. So the idea is that they sort of expand an already planned celebration to include this parade with tanks or missile carriers or whatever they parade. I talked to people in the Wilson building who said, we don't know anything. And I said, boy, are they keeping you in the dark? And they said, no, we think they don't know anything either. This is all very hastily planned. So this might be a dumb question, but if this happens, if there is this big thing and Trump's going to be sort of receiving troops and weapons and so on, is that expected to be a big tourism event for Washington? Are we going to see a lot of camo-clad, potentially armed visitors hopped up on Army lore and Trumpian commander-in-chief ship?
I guess you could. I mean, this is kind of all, in a way, maybe wrapped up in the 250th birthday of the U.S. Sort of all these events. That commission that's in charge of the 250th July 4th is taking in some of these requests and handling some of the planning for this as well. But the parade's supposed to span 4 miles, starting at the Pentagon, going over the Arlington Memorial Bridge, ending up at the White House. This would be the proposed parade route. And America 250, which is this nonprofit to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, is sort of helping marshal all these plans. So I could see it being a tourism driver as well to the city.
So one thing I find really interesting about this is that DC will have just hosted World Pride. This parade comes on the heels of that. Also, the entire month of June is Pride Month, and we know DC goes hard for that. So are we as a city equipped to handle all of that over the course of a month?
In terms of people, I mean, we're well experienced with big crowds and events. I mean, it's surely a challenge, but I don't think the city would want to turn down any events. But I mean, it's a logistical maybe nightmare because the feds are going to have to work with the city and Arlington County and make this parade route work and see how they're going to actually make it work on these streets.
I mean, listen, I'm not a mechanical or I'm not a road engineer either. But I mean, one thing about Washington, D.C. is the city was sort of built for grand gatherings and parades. And Trump's allegation the first time around was that this was a bunch of naysaying by people who didn't like the idea anyway. That kind of rings true to me. I mean, I don't mean to be a apologist here, but of all the things to worry about in D.C. that are grand mall that was designed for festivals and parades and stuff might be too much, or having this sort of on the heels of World Pride in the middle of Pride Month is too much. That's the thing I don't particularly worry about, with the exception of since I literally don't know what a tank can do to a road.
So I'm looking at the route. It would run down Constitution Avenue after the Memorial Bridge to the White House. So maybe there's no bike lanes or things to rip up. I mean, Pennsylvania Avenue is a bit more. You got to move some things around. But, as you say, Mike, I guess, you want the tanks to roll. So you make the case.
I just say of all the things we do pretty well in this city, big gatherings, we're pretty good at that. Kind of built for that.
We are good at that.
Particularly down in the mall. I mean, this is not some quaint neighborhood street. It's like Constitution Avenue.
Yes. I think a lot of locals will wince and cringe at the thought of a military show in DC. It's
Absolutely.
Just not something. I mean, have we had something like that maybe outside of wartime?
No, and that is a very legit reason to say I don't like this idea at all. I hate the idea of a president standing like some potentate and receiving the praise of tanks and soldiers. That is absolutely fine thing to cringe at, but sort of citing logistic reasons to not do it seems like a little bit dodging the subject.
Ever wondered why mosquitoes bite you? Or maybe you're curious about policy, like solving the housing shortage or bridging the digital divide. Or maybe you want to hear it all. After the Fact, a podcast by Pew, breaks down today's big issues with expert insights and real stories. Whether you're into the research or the personal stories behind it, we've got you covered. Get the stories behind the stats. Listen to After the Fact wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a CityCast superfan, you have definitely heard us singing the praises of our longtime supporter, Paulson & Nace. Big news! Paulson & Nace is now Nace Law Group, Same great team, just with a new name. When you are hurt by the negligence of others, you want a lawyer that will actually fight for you, not one that will settle for the bare minimum. NACE's compassionate lawyers fight to bring cases to juries so you can get everything you deserve. If you've been hurt or lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call NACE Law Group for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.washingtondcinjurylawyers.com or call 202-463-1999.
All right, so other thing sort of at the collision point of local Washington and the federal government, different end of Pennsylvania Avenue, though, is that bill was introduced to the House recently by Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, a Republican from upstate New York, that would roll back the ranked choice voting that D.C. voters approved in a referendum last year. It's part of Republicans in general have taken a position where they don't much like ranked choice voting. I don't know that Republicans are actually hurt more than Democrats. I think it tends to be that like party insiders get hurt, whatever party they're in. And then this week, Senator Mike Lee, a very conservative but sort of libertarian-ish Republican from Utah, has targeted this closed meetings measure that we talked about last week, where the D.C. Council quite controversially has okayed a bill that would increase the number of situations where they can close their meetings to the public. And Mike Lee thinks this is a bad idea. These are two cases of like, if you believe in home rule, as I do, these are Congress interfering with the will of the local elected officials or voters. Nobody in D.C. elected Congresswoman Tenney or Senator Lee, and yet here they are legislating for us. It seems quite unfair. However, in this case, the thing for which each of them is legislating is going to have quite a lot of local support. I think on the open meetings thing, we in the media obviously have voiced a lot of outrage about that because we depend on open meetings. And in the case of ranked choice voting, it passed. It passed, quite handily, but there was still quite a lot of people. I was talking to a former DC council member this week, who was like, I hate that ranked choice voting. I wish they had never done it because I also hate that I'm going to have to oppose Congress interfering about it. But these are in the most recent few years, a lot of the Congress meddling stuff has been on things that have sort of basically, have very broad support in D.C. This one, it's more like the messing with the crime bill, where there was something that was that had the position adopted by Congress hadn't carried the day in D.C., but had a pretty hefty amount of support, including from the mayor. So it's going to be interesting to sort of watch D.C.'s response to these things.
I also think it's interesting because in this regard, locals, people want open meetings, but maybe council doesn't, whereas council maybe doesn't love ranked choice voting. And so that's why they would be pro some of this interference. It's very strange that the public and maybe council might be at odds with some of these things,
Yes, and it's a hard time for the council to legislate because they can't introduce things without thinking, will Congress strike this down or want to strike it down? I think the ranked choice voting, there was always the threat, even though it passed on a public initiative, there was always the threat that the council could stymie it or slow its implementation. I think it's a few years out still, even at best case scenario, if it gets implemented. This could be something, that they kind of just that they turn a blind eye to from Congress. But the open meetings, the media raised a hellstorm over this, and basically their justification for introducing more of these private secret meetings between council members and the mayor was that we need to fight back against Republicans in Congress and Trump in a closed setting.
Right. That's the irony is that they want to close the doors to the public so that they can figure out ways to appease and accommodate Congress and Trump without everybody seeing what they're doing.
How do we think council generally and the mayor is going to respond here? I know Mayor Bowser in particular has taken a more conciliatory sort of tone this go around, as opposed to don't mess with our city kind of thing. Will they try to find common ground with the government or just stay mum, roll with the punches, just kind of go with it thing? What do you guys think?
I think thus far the pattern from the Bowser administration is that they have given ground on non-material things, and with the idea of keeping their powder dry for things that involve money for the budget, money for the stadium, money for Medicaid. And these seem like non-material things. I don't know if that pattern works forever, but I've been struck by how little daylight there seems to be between the mayor and even people who like to beat up on her in the council on this matter. So, it's not a question of appeasing or accommodating, because Congress can do this through legislative fiat. But the question is like how hard they'll scream and condemn. And my hunch is not that hard.
Yeah, I think that's right. Right now, actually, there's the DC's budget is still in limbo because the House hasn't passed a fix for the budget. It could cause $1 billion in cuts if we remember a few weeks back. This could be, that bill could end up getting a bunch of anti-home rule things added onto it, rolled into it. And I would say there is a deep worry in the Wilson building about that happening. And these are some of the things that could get added onto that kind of a bill.
What else are they worried about in their nightmares about that could get added to that bill?
Well, these are two new proposals, right, in Congress. So, I mean, I could see the open meetings one getting added. There are other things that they could go into the budget process and, I don't know, rip out some specific laws or things they don't want. They could decide to go and put something against DEI in DC government if they so wanted to. There are lots of things that could just come out of a hat here. And the longer DC has to wait for that bill to pass out the House, the more perilous it becomes.
This episode is brought to you by the Nissan Armada Pro 4X. With a twin-turbo V6 engine ready to propel your adventures, up to 8,500 pounds of towing capacity to haul all your favorite toys, and space for 8 passengers, Nissan's most powerful car yet will chew up and spit out anything you throw at it. Learn more about the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada at nissanusa.com. Towing capacity varies by configuration. See Nissan Towing Guide and Owner's Manual for additional information. Always secure cargo.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
Meanwhile, Julia, you've been watching this thing this week. I've had a theory of a long time that DC is like the land of adult children, that a lot of what organizes life for young adults in Washington is sort of no chaperones versions of kids stuff, like adult kickball leagues. And you drew my attention this week to something actually Axios wrote about, which is this epic money scavenger hunt. What is it?
I don't know, maybe folks in the Wilson building can hop in on this attempt to find $50 duct tape all around the city. This guy, Andrew Freeman, is hiding money just all around the city for fun. He runs this Instagram account called Capital Collectors. Basically, a few times a week, he posts a video of himself hiding cash. He's duct taped cash to a fence in front of Union Station. He's thrown it into a plant bush at the mall at Prince George's. He's hidden it at other local landmarks in D.C., Maryland, Virginia. The longest a prize has remained hidden was 11 minutes when Freeman taped it to a bridge on Theodore Roosevelt Island. So basically, he hides all this money and we got to go find it. But apparently, we got to compete against 50,000 other people to find this money. So Wilson building folks, you might be out of luck here.
Hey, where do I find his account?
So you can find him on Instagram. It's at Capital Collectors DC. It's CAPITAL Collectors DC. So yeah, hides cash 3 times a week. Have you guys gone on any of these hunts for cash at all? I have not.
Alas, no.
Gee, I haven't, but times are tough, I guess. We could have a recession, is this a recession indicator that people are bouncing around for $50 duct tape to random street corners.
I mean, we're going to get into the tariff stuff in the members only segment, but like, does this counterbalance the tariffs? Is the $50 the thing that gets your cup of coffee in the morning? I don't know.
I wonder how he wound up with 50. Like, was the idea that 20 wouldn't be enough to get people to get out of their houses, but 100 would be too much?
I don't know. I don't know. I think 50 is like an enticing enough number. One other thing that he does, so, you know, you might be caught on camera doing this. He also records the people coming to collect the money. Basically, he records the winner and then the first few losers, which is really funny. He says that there's a specific walk that folks have when they're looking for the money.
Wait, does he wait there all day for a winner?
So he waits there, but the truth is that it takes at most, 11 minutes to find this cash. He posts, and then people find this not instantaneously, but within the 5 to 10 minutes that he's posted. That's pretty quick.
Do we know anything about what his interest is? Is this like a big social science experiment, or like I don't know that I want to give $50 to a bunch of strangers.
He partnered with this group called San Diego Scavengers. They sponsor him. They help edit his videos. They help, I guess, figure out maybe some of the monetary stuff. You can read the full article at the Washington Post. But overall, I think it's a really interesting thing that, people are trying to find $50 scattered all over the district. Like I said, maybe this offsets the tariffs that are coming.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for listening to CityCast DC today. Paid subscribers get a bonus 4th roundup chat about Trump's attempt to remake the world order and therefore DC. If you want to be sure you always get the full episode, become a member. Head to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. It's only $8 a month, and members get ad-free listening, exclusive members events, and an extra events newsletter every week. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Priyanka Tilve, Julia Karen, Ash Durbin, and Elizabeth Kama. Newsletter editor Kayla Cote-Stemmerman wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan, with additional music from Philip Ayers, Blue Lou, and Rue Walker from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. If you enjoyed this show, why not propose adding a CityCast float to the military parade? We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.